right. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you may be. Thank you for joining us. Another episode of Catching Up with Jacob. And yes, he is here. Jacob Prash, how are you?
Blessings in Jesus. I'm holding on to my faith.
Amen. Well, I think we're all in the same boat. That's what Noah said. So that's good, Jacob. Thank you so much for being
On
with
the
us. And
same
I'm
boat.
glad you're
Yes,
feeling
yes.
better. People were so concerned about you because they haven't seen you. And is Jacob even here? I said, yes, he is, but he's sick. He's ill. He's got the fire stuff and all that stuff. But you're feeling better, right, brother?
Well, I'm recovered, so is James, but the fires are an ongoing problem.
Okay, good, good, good. I'm glad to see you. And yes, the fires are still going, and we got some stuff that we want to talk about that today. David Lister down in the South. How are you, David?
Doing really well. I had to put a sweater on. Our temperature went down to freezing.
I heard, I heard the
Terrible.
person
Terrible.
behind you was telling me how a cold front was coming in, 3 feet of
Yeah.
snow, and for a Canadian to tell me that it's cold, it's got to be really cold.
I think she's becoming a southerner. She,
It's because I said, hey, it's t-shirt and short weather, right? And then she's like, oh no, it's sweater weather. And I was like, all right, that's and I told her, I said, well, I must be the most worst one of all of us because it gets 50 degrees around here, 60 degrees, right, Jay? And then everybody grabs a sweater and it's
Oh,
just so
yeah,
uncomfortable.
of
Yeah. So
course.
I mean, I like the cooler weather, but then you get acclimated. So, welcome, David, and good to see you.
yeah.
Mia, God bless you. Jay, down the 210, the 101, somewhere in that area, to an undisclosed location. How are you, Jay?
I'm doing great. I'm here very close to Jacob. In fact, I think you can maybe hear some of the echo because he's in the next
Yeah.
room.
From Katazaki Studios, coming to you
Yes.
live. I was going to say Burbank, but it's not quite Burbank, but you know what I'm saying. Well,
Studio City.
Studio City. Jay, you were sick as well as Jacob. You guys were both ill. How you feel now? People were concerned about you guys.
Uh, I had a fever of 102 last week. Thank the Lord. I am feeling a lot better. Few days of just rest, solid rest, and a lot of coughing.
Oh man.
And my father recovered too because I gave,
Oh
it
yeah.
was the gift that kept on giving, both to
Oh,
Jacob and my dad.
love. Well, I'm glad you have a good doctor. I think it's called telehealth, right? And
Yeah,
they're
telehealth.
so,
They
so
told me not
helpful.
to, yeah, don't go to a hospital that's closed.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's nice.
Yeah. No, it
Yeah.
worked out well.
Well, it reminds me of the lockdown years when they just tell you, well, nothing you can do, go to the hospital and die. That's really what they were telling you to do. I mean, maybe not
Well,
in
they
so.
were said, we're going to give you some cough syrup. Enjoy yourself. We can't do anything for you.
Can we
Yeah,
just go directly to the funeral home, save the hospital bill?
there you go. Yeah, you don't even see the doctor anymore. So it's just telehealth stuff. But anyway,
Yeah.
welcome, Jay. Glad you're back. Davey, it's already Saturday for you, but welcome. Good morning. How are you, Davey?
You're doing pretty good this Saturday morning or Friday afternoon.
Yeah.
Oh, Friday evening, depend where you are.
Yeah. And you were also ill for a little bit, right? I remember you talking to me about, you weren't feeling well. I think you missed one of the catching ups. I think it was 2 weeks ago.
I know it's before Christmas and that kind of thing
Okay.
because
Yeah.
yeah, we had to reschedule our family get together and that kind of
Okay.
thing. Um,
Man. Yeah. So I'm
yeah,
glad you're feeling well.
yeah, much better now, thank you. Yeah, thanks.
Praise the Lord. All right. God bless you, brother. Thank you so much. And want to welcome everyone who's watching live and meeting us where we are today, catching up with Jacob. Jay, what episode? It's 167.
67.
Incredible. And it's
I thought
we're
we
already
were two
I'm
something.
217. Sorry.
17.
217.
217. Sorry.
That's all right. We're gonna reach that 300 one pretty fast. And so you're watching live. Thank you for joining us. You're watching later. Thank you for watching later. And we're on different platforms on YouTube, on Facebook, on Vimeo, on Rumble, ever growing X, formerly known as Twitter. It's always be Twitter for me and in my normal my normal speech. So it's X though. I got to get used to that. And Telegram. Did we get is Telegram back up? I knew there were some issues with their algorithm or something was blocking it, but is it back up?
It's streaming to Telegram, but we usually have some issues with the sound for a while, but it seems to correct
Okay.
itself about 10 minutes into the stream.
Okay. So if you are watching on Telegram, we just want to let you know it's not we're not trying to sabotage anybody. We love people on Telegram that watch us. It's just the technology the Telegram has. The live stream has been up and down the last few weeks, and it's the audio, right, Jay? That mainly
Yeah,
it's causing.
the audio sounds like very slowed down, but
Okay.
yes, hopefully it's working all right. I haven't had a chance to check it.
Okay. Okay. Very good. Thank you so much. And RTN, memorialtv.org, and soon coming memorial.tv. I'll be very, very happy when that comes. And we'll make more announcements, but just let everybody know it's coming. Please
It's
pray.
coming.
And we're going to have a very good website that people are going to enjoy and be able to watch live stream here. And if you're on Rumble, you can ask questions. We're going to be going on backstage and ask Jacob a bunch of questions, put him on the hot seat, and get some answers. I think we have some left, aren't we, Davey? We have some
53 of them. Yes,
53
53
left.
questions, Jacob.
See what happens when you take a day off, Jacob. You can't.
Always. What about X? We're on X as well, yes?
Yeah, we
Yes,
said
yeah.
that.
We
Yes.
did, yeah. We're on X. So, so if you watch live, you can send those questions on Rumble because I'm backstage. The second part of this episode, we won't be on YouTube and Facebook. So, you can be on the other ones. But if you want to ask questions, go to Rumble. We'll field the questions, comments. We welcome your comments, your questions, and it's a great thing. A couple of announcements before we get started. We just want to do this real quick. Jacob Prash, where are you going to be at this weekend, and what are you working on?
I'm going to be with you con usted en Devore en domingo a las 10:30 en domingo.
Amen.
Nosotros tenemos una lección de Biblia a la placas.
Plagas, yes. You're going to be wearing one of these, I think.
That's correct.
Yeah. How to stop the plagues. Cómo parar las plagas.
Sí.
And that's going to be
A
great.
new
That's
version.
a new version. Yeah. So come all Sunday morning, 10:30, just down the 10 freeway, 10 East, the 215 or the 15 or the 210. You can take a lot of freeways to get there, and you can join us there. And it's on our website, both on Memorial TV, sorry, not Memorial TV, memorial.org and ccodtruth.org. So come, and then if you got some of the announcements, you'll know Jacob's going to be there. But also, Jacob, you're working on something. You're working on the movie.
I've been in Hollywood. Finally, we thought, to resume production on the documentary film, Why Is This Time Different? Of course, it had been delayed massively by COVID. Then it was, of course, delayed further by the war in Israel. So we began working on it in Hollywood. And then it was delayed by fires. But it's under production. We've at least resumed production. So please keep it in prayer. We believe it can be a very effective instrument in the Lord's service, both for the church and for evangelism. Why is this time different than the other times in history? Believers thought it was the last days. We do, however, need your prayers. There's been a lot of opposition, anything you can imagine. And the fires this week in Los Angeles, they have obstructed everything.
Yeah, amen. Thank you, Jacob. Thank you for that announcement. And make sure you guys keep Jacob in prayer, Jay in prayer, the whole Memorial TV team, because this is going to be a really, really good film, documentary style, but with the story in it, which is why is this time different than any other time? Jesus is coming back soon, but Christians have believed that for a long time. What makes us right? What makes us so right? And why we believe this is time it's going to be different. So, David Linster, you got some administrative announcements? Go for it.
Yeah. Oh, also, your church is right off the old Route 66, the famous Route 66.
It's right there.
Right there.
Freeway, and just south. We're just north of the old Route 66. That's right.
Yeah. But anyway, it's this time of year that Moriel sends out all its year-to-date receipts for those that have given donations. We just finished all the people that send by checks and like that. So those will be going out today. People that give via PayPal, we will be able to send those out, God willing, next week. So, but then the IRS hadn't got all the rules in for filing, so we're going to get them to you before the rules will let you file. So,
Praise the Lord. Thank you so much for that. So, good announcements for those who support by prayer and financially. This is the time of year you get an update, and so we're sending it to you starting today, and then other things will come down the line if you donate in another way. Davey, announcements. Something about the USB sticks. You want to talk about that?
Yes, yeah, the USB orders have been coming in constantly, which is great, and we've been able to keep up. It's great. We've got Mike McDonough now helping with any orders in the UK, and Tony is helping uh, get orders out to anyone in Canada and the USA. So if you would like to order a USB, which features 700 teachings of Marco Quintana, a lot of these aren't available anywhere else. They include the audios from a lot of the Zoom studies that aren't available up online. Just email me at Davy, Davy, Rosengreen, Rosengreen at gmail.com. And please be sure to include your name and mailing address, and we'll get one out to you as soon as possible.
Thank
And
you.
we do hope to have an updated Jacob one available, hopefully by around about April, all going well.
Perfect. Right around Passover, so you get a good Passover gift there. And so on that USB, it's got all my conspiracy theories that have come true. So if you want to get that, no, I'm all kidding aside. But I didn't even know we had that many messages, but they're all there, and you can grab a hold of it. And it's all about getting God's word into people and getting into God's word and getting God's word into people. So that's really our main goal.
Actually,
Jay,
we had more, Jacob. I mean, Marco. We actually had more, but we couldn't fit them all on. So it's kind
oh,
of like, yeah. We'll be able to do an update later too.
gonna have to do a conspiracy theory part two, right? 2.0 to get people caught up to it. Jay, you want to talk a little bit about our podcast and where else they can find us, especially our new channel that is on YouTube?
Of course. So, once again, if you don't want to purchase a USB or have us send you one, an easy way that you can get all the teachings and all the lessons is, of course, you can watch them on Memorial Chapel YouTube, but also podcasts. They're free. You download them. They're there on your hard drive or your device for you to watch at any time you want, whether you're traveling or whether you just want to maybe listen to it in your leisure. So please, you can find them, of course, on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, TuneIn, Alexa, and iHeartRadio. All of them are available for you to download, and they stay whenever you need them. And also, if you have not already, make sure to subscribe to Memorial Chapel. That is where all the teachings will be going for YouTube from now on.
So make sure you mark that down. Not only bookmark it, but if you really wanted to know, and don't be concerned. I said I can't find Jacob's teaching on this. You might be on Moriel TV channel, and it's got a different arrangement of studies. So you have to go to the Moriel Chapel one to find those. So please start also subscribing to Moriel Chapel one, so you find the study and you find prophecy and current events on Moriel TV. So great stuff. And ever growing. I think I haven't seen the latest numbers on that one, Jay, but I think the Memorial Chapel one, people are getting a hold of it now. I think it's growing slowly, but I think people are getting to know that there is another channel where they can find Jacob stuff as well, right?
Yes, we just crossed over 1,200 new subscribers to Memorial Chapel. So please
Very good.
continue.
Very, very good. Thank you so much. All right. Well, gentlemen, let's catch up. Jacob Prash, 3 days into the inauguration. Seems like the whole world is waiting with bated breath. And over the weekend, there's been a lot of a lot of concerns of possible terror attacks, possible delays, possible threats. You got helicopters, you got drones sniffing out any potential nuclear stuff from the Middle East, especially Iran. Lots of fears, and Trump actually just moved the inauguration from being an outside to an inside over weather issues. They say that's the official line, over weather issues because of the Arctic blast that's coming in. But helicopters, irregularities, drones, all kinds of things going on. People are waiting for this throughout the whole world. They're like, we can't wait for this day to come. And but it's not going to be here. It's 3 days. Jacob, should we have any concerns, any possible things that you see coming over the next few days?
Things arriving within the next few days. Obviously, there's always a danger of a lone wolf. There's always a danger of some kind of event or assassination attempt. And that is probably, if anything, heightened. While I do not dispute that the cold front coming down from Canada is a reason to relocate the inauguration indoors, I also think it'll add to the preventive security for a president who's already undergone 2 assassination attempts. I am not making the accusation, but of course, I do not trust the deep state, as we call it now, to have had a hand in those events. Again, I can't make the accusation, but I can't dismiss it as unthinkable. This goes back, of course, to the Warren report. Be that as it may, what has happened is the Biden administration, which is not Biden's administration. He's, again, as we've said for years, a senile corruptocrat and a pathological liar. It is the Joe Obama administration and its adjutants have done everything they can to sabotage the takeover, the transition that they can by saddling the new administration with as many impediments and handicaps as they can. Some of the things that Biden has done or the Biden administration has done are absolutely unbelievable. 2,500 people released, murderers being released. This is, again, the Soros philosophy, seemingly, and the Bragg philosophy. Letting these dangerous criminals go, all with a political motive. Biden let 11 Islamic terrorists go from Guantanamo, capping the record of Barack Obama, letting 5 of them go in exchange for that soldier who should have been court-martialed simply because he was a homosexual. I'm waiting to see if they do anything concerning Liz Cheney. I'm waiting to see if they do anything with a get-out-of-jail-free card for Liz Cheney. Biden has been a very incompetent president, a very corrupt president, and a very non-president. He's almost been a marionette of others who are obviously animating him. He's too senile. He's too inept to do or say anything. We also know that the Democratic Party is a party that has lied repeatedly, claiming to be supporters of Biden because he's personally astute and sharp at the top of his game, and then they pushed him out when they get caught lying about it in the debates. This is Schumer. This is Pelosi. They pushed him out after they lied about it, and this is certainly Harris. The hypocrisy of the legacy media, as it's now called, is astounding. They lied, they knew they lied, and were supposed to forget it. Right up to one of his final deeds in office is promising he would not pardon his son and give his son a blanket pardon after he directly lied to the American people and was supposed to pretend it was not a lie. Even more absurd still is his departure speech. He was trying to mimic Dwight Eisenhower's warning of the military-industrial complex.
Yeah.
About the oligarchy complex, after he himself gave presidential medals to George Soros and to the super rhino, Michael Bloomberg, who's a rhino among rhinos, the wealthiest rhino in the world. He has $100 billion in assets, and he gets the medal from Biden when Biden is warning about oligarchs. You could not make up this kind of hypocrisy. You could not make up this unbelievable hypocrisy. It's absurd. Now, I was watching Rachel Maddow talk about it and lauding him and say it was a great speech. She's not that stupid, but she does believe the people who still watch her are that stupid.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we'll come back to the Biden speech in a moment because there's a few things I wanted to ask you about that. But in terms of national security, the advisor of Biden, Sullivan, David Lister, we'll go to you. Just came out this week and it says, well, I'm not going to come back unless something happens over the next few days. And you know how it is. He says anything can happen. I'm not saying he was telegraphing anything, but I think the idea is that people do have this sort of tension and fear that something could happen just on the wake of this inauguration on Monday.
Yeah, it's interesting that Don Bongino has been very concerned about Trump doing his inauguration outside for weeks now. And then others have started dropping out. People like Nancy Pelosi, Michelle Obama, they're not attending. Well, some people say they're not attending because they just don't want to put on a happy face when Trump is now president again. But so there's much question about his safety. Now, of course, this is not the first president to have his inauguration indoor. Reagan did it in 1980. There's one president that they didn't go inside when it was raining and cold, and he spoke for 60 minutes and then died a couple weeks later.
Yeah, pandemonium.
So, so there is something to it, So let's just hope it's not. I mean, the other day we had two people try to breach the Capitol when Trump was there with machetes. I think that was kind of stupid, but they have. If you've ever been to the Capitol, they have big bulletproof glass and doors you have to go through. It's not easy anymore, even for a citizen that has business there. They've turned it into it's just incredible. It's a walled off fence around the whole Capitol and the White House and everything now. I used to could walk in and do tours with my youth groups and everything. And so, but now they're all afraid of everything. So there may be something to it. So let's just pray for the safety of Mr. Trump, that nothing happens and that he can get to work.
Yeah, that's right. And I think people are just not just in America, but throughout the world. I mean, you
Yeah.
get different people that email us, and and I was there in England praying for us, and they're looking forward as if they needed somebody in the United States that can maybe ride the ship a little bit more. And at the same time, he's a politician. He's just a man.
Yeah.
People have a lot of hope and trust that this guy is going to make something, but at the same time, people have always been disappointed after a few years. And hopefully things do get straightened out. In some cases, I think Trump's going to get us 50 cents on the dollar, maybe a little bit more.
Yeah.
But I think that as Christians, to really trust and pray for our president and pray for him that he gets saved. That's really one of the important things. Jacob, I wanted to ask you
I
about
was going to say the same thing.
Oh,
Pray
praise the
for
Lord.
him, he gets saved.
That's it. That's probably
Yeah.
the most important thing in his life, and that God use him. I mean, there's lots
Yeah.
of things and lots of dangers. We're going to talk about that in a moment. But Jacob, you got confirmation hearings. Some of Trump's picks are on the confirmation hearings this week. Pat Bondi, you got Rubio, you got Ratcliffe, you got Hetzek, you got Duffy. All appear to, I guess, done pretty well. But your take on either one of them or all of them?
I thought they all performed well to a predictably hostile environment. The thing that impressed me the most was not simply the high grade performance of the nominees, but the low life antics of the Democratic senators, still ranting about the same old things that didn't work in the election. After perpetrating the lawfare, after perpetrating the corruption of the Justice Department, after the corruption of the media and silencing free speech, after all of those things that they've done, to begin accusing the nominees of wanting to do what they did as if they didn't do it, ignoring the open lie of Biden about the pardon of his son and these other commutation of services of sentences by Biden before leaving office, as if they were self-righteous and the victims, ignoring the fact that the majority of the voters, a popular majority, rejected them, as well as the electoral massive majority rejected them, and yet they're yelling and vehement and angry, and that's their only capacity to respond. They look like a pack of of mad dogs. They look like a pack of mad wolves.
You could have replaced the hyenas. You could have replaced them with hyenas, and it would not
hyenas with wolfhounds with rabies. Globuchar and Hirono and Rosen and Warren. They look like a pack of hyenas with rabies.
And one looked like she was even drinking or slurring her words and accusing the other guy of drinking that wasn't drinking with 20 witnesses.
To have seen Kane, who looked like he looked like he was inebriated himself, harping on about rumors of alcohol abuse with unnamed sources, treating it as if it's a fact with unnamed sources, no evidence, but pressing it. And you were drunk all, you couldn't believe it. You couldn't believe it. Anybody stupid enough to vote Democrat, anybody who's that stupid, I don't think they should bother voting at all. They don't have the intelligence level.
Yeah.
Or they may want to watch out for fires coming to their city.
That's right.
That's true. David Lister, which one impressed you? If not all of them, but Pam Bondi was there, and Rubio was there, and of course Kash Patel, which hasn't been confirmed yet, but he was there. Duffy was there, of course. Kristi Noem. Which one impressed you the most? I mean, it was quite a put it this way, quite an arena to be on. But to Jacob's point, I think they did well. But what's your take?
Well, I love the leadoff hitter, Pete Herzog, for Department of Defense. He did an incredible job. And while that pack was ravaging him, he just maintained his cool, just like the guy had been in war. Oh, yeah, that's right. He is a war hero. No, something that they said he didn't know anything about the military. This is what they tried to do to him. But he was great. But I also love Pam Bondi. Wow. She had Adam Schiff very, very worried. He was going after.
Nervous. He was nervous.
He was nervous. He was going after till she finally said, look, I'll be glad to help you with the crime that is going in your state, which is 87% higher than the rest of the United States. And he kind of turned on and he kind of went silent after that. So she has a great record. She's a great investigator. And what she said she's going to do is follow the law. Now, they seem to have a hard time understanding that since they use lawfare, in their actions. And so to hear it, and to someone that has actually done it for 17 years as a prosecutor and then another 7 as the AG of Florida, that would sound foreign to him. And that's just the point that Jacob's making. These people don't know the truth. They don't know how to act on justice and to do laws and to pass normal laws for all of the people instead of special interest groups like they have. So those two were absolutely wonderful. And I know Pam is going to follow the law. And if you've committed crimes, well, I loved how she said it on X. Hey, California, it's 24 days after the election. You're still counting. You're cheating. Hope you will enjoy prison.
Yeah, this thing is just crazy. You just keep counting and counting and counting. Yeah. It's like it never stops. And it's just like
they're fixing the votes. They have to.
Yeah, it's a criminal cartel.
They didn't go through right, so they have to bring them back through. And I forgot the term, but that's what they do: bring them back and redo them.
It's a criminal cartel, and yet it is tolerated to a certain degree of another. Jacob, I wanted to ask you about.
Oh, sorry. She also reminded.
Yes, go ahead.
She also reminded him, Schiff, that he was censored by the House himself for this very kind of activity you're presently engaged in.
Yeah. She put him on warning. Yeah, she put him on warning. Like, watch out for this. And I think she did well. And I hope she does that, because one of the things that, and I wanted to ask you this, is this idea of surveillance. And I don't know if it's been brought up enough. And I think sometimes because these are, decent people, seems to be decent people, they sort of get a pass on dealing with the real tough subjects. And but I do hope that they go after the surveillance. I do hope
Yes.
they tackle the surveillance issue, especially in her position. It wasn't much said, but obviously, once if she is confirmed, she would be able to do something because she does come with a good track record. I do hope they tackle it. Jacob, what do you think? This surveillance thing that Congress passed, thanks to Mike Johnson and all that, that needs to be rolled back. That needs to be exposed. That needs to be brought up to justice because this is unreal that they are able to do this.
The misuse and the lack of oversight of the Pfizer court has been a perilous threat to democratic process and to the Constitution, particularly the Fourth Amendment. Yet there is a move to perpetuate it and allow the FBI to continue to do it, even within the newly elected administration. It's not officially decided yet, but allegedly Tulsi Gabbard is looking for a solution to the issue. FISA is dangerous, and it is at best a necessary evil, but we have seen how it has been corrupted and politically misused. There must be some kind of restriction placed on FISA.
That's
She
right.
actually mentioned the FISA court and one guy that had misused it.
Yes.
And so she knows it's a problem,
He
and
knows it's a
that was an
problem. Yeah.
absolute felony that guy did. So he might, hearing his name, might be very worried.
Jacob, I want to go back to you. Rubio, Secretary of State. And now a couple of things. We'll go one by one. So let's take them one by one by one. They asked him about the Panama Canal. The Panama Canal. So let's start with the Panama Canal. And his thoughts were we just need to have better relationships with Panama. He did not completely discredit the idea that they may come back to the U.S., but he didn't say one way or the other. He just says we need to do something better with Panama because it's not working out. Now, Trump's idea is to bring Panama Canal under the control of the U.S. Your thoughts with Rubio being there, Hispanic, he knows the culture very well, and he's actually done very well in terms of foreign affairs.
Okay, first thing we have to remember about Mr. Rubio is that he is a rhino. He is an anti-Bush rhino, but he is still more rhino than he is conservative. However, we have not seen a lot about him since the election, even though he was nominated to be the Secretary of State, replacing Blinken, who is a useless lightweight. Mr. Rubio is being very careful and playing the diplomat already. He's being very careful and playing the diplomat already. He understands that Donald Trump threw out, as part of his way of negotiating, the hard line that we're going to take this back. He raised the specter of a forced or even a military reinforced take back of control of the canal to the United States. He threw that out as a prospect. What Mr. Rubio is doing, it's the good cop, bad cop routine. He's taking a softer approach. Now that the threat is there, now we can negotiate. What Mr. Rubio is trying to do is to disengage China from management control of the canal and get a better deal for the United States. Panama is in violation of both the letter and the spirit of the useless garbage give back agreement negotiated by Jimmy Carter. Carter has gone to his grave and leaving that mess as one of the ramifications of his failed presidency. Again, we can thank Carter for this mess. Very much so. He was a useless president.
He's a gift that keeps on giving.
Even from his grave, he's a gift that keeps on giving.
You know, something that hadn't got a lot of play in this Panama thing is the Panama Canal has a leak, and it needs $3.2 billion to fix it.
Maybe that's what
So
they need to
maybe
help.
they need Uncle Sam to help them.
Yeah. Back to Jacob real quick. On China, Jacob, they were asking him about the Taiwan Strait and China destabilizing the area. Did you like his thoughts? I mean, he's been tough on China. There's no doubt one of the few
He
senators
has been.
tough
He
on
has
China.
been in terms of senatorial rhetoric, Now
Right.
it's time for substance.
Where we're going to see it, you think?
I wouldn't rule it out, but I don't think it's likely to happen.
Okay.
I
Very
think
good.
China has a interest, given its economic situation, particularly in trying to avoid conflict with the Trump administration.
Very true. Greenland. Greenland. They asked him about Greenland, and he says, now the geography makes sense. He says it expands pretty much our horizons in the future. So that's probably the one he was more open to the fact that this is something that they ought to look into. And to tell you the reality is the Greenland PM, the prime minister,
Yes.
he wants the partnership. He doesn't like the Danes too much. He wants the partnership with the
Yes,
U.S.
he said he wants a partnership, but he said he doesn't. He said we don't want to be American or Danish. We want to be self-determining. That's
You
what
know
he
what that
said.
means. You know what that
Yes,
means, right? Yeah.
yes.
And
Diplomatic double speech.
yeah, Trump Jr. was there. They loved
Yes,
him there. In fact, the people actually, if there was a survey done, most of the people would either are independent or they say they would like to be Americans. Very few like to be Danish. I think
very few want to remain Danish. Correct.
yeah, I think the Danish government has not treated them well. They've sort of left it on their own. But anyway, interesting thing. I'm going to go to Jay real quick. Jay, Kash Patel showed up on a Wednesday during the confirmation hearings. Now, he hasn't had the full confirmation type hearing that the other ones had, but what's your thought on it? I mean, when you mention Kash Patel is like polarizing, right? Because things he said about Epstein, about uncovering the FBI and what they've done and breaking it up. So your thoughts on him? It's an interesting choice. It'll be a fascinating choice if he does what he's promised to do.
There have been several people who have threatened in the FBI that if Kash Patel is made the head of the FBI, that they will resign. And I say, well, if he can just get them to fire themselves, it's so much easier for us to
Yes,
get that under control. That organization is absolutely lawless
that's right.
under the Biden regime. It's been, as we've described it many times, a Gestapo, a legal arm used to intimidate regular people.
Yeah.
My hope is Kash Patel can go in and clean it out of the career partisans, as it were. But I mean, you're talking about an organization that needs a major overhaul.
Major.
That's it's going to be hard for him no matter what. He's great for the job, but it's not going to be an easy job.
Hmm.
Yeah.
His thoughts on Epstein and the Epstein Island and all that and uncovering the list. I mean, it seems like a pipe dream. I mean, we all expect and we all hope that it would happen one day. And this guy, he actually brings it up. He talks about it. He opens it up. Do you think there's any traction with that, Jay?
I mean, before Trump became president, he talked about declassifying some of the materials in the Kennedy assassination. We're still waiting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So until it actually happens, it's just talk. Now, is if he's keeping it in the public eye or keeping it in the public mind, that's a great thing. These things should have been released a long time ago. The list, the people who have been on that list, their careers need to be over. They need to be brought out from out the dark, and much like many other, they need to be exposed because what they
Mm.
did is completely illegal, and it's in a sane, rational, lawful society, that behavior is not acceptable.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah,
an
absolutely.
underreported thing here. Pam Bondi said that anybody whose name is on that Epstein list has no legal right to keep it out of the public.
That's right.
That's been underreported.
Well, the FBI has had the list. The FBI has
Yeah,
had the list, and hopefully Patel can do something about that. It's
they're
not about holding
protecting
our breath.
somebody.
Yeah, it's not
Yes.
about holding our breath, but hopefully it gets done. David, I wanted to ask you this about the Greenland, Panama, and even Canada. Is Trump regurgitating the globalist idea that they've been around for a while? It's been around since Clinton and Bush with the North American Trade Agreement to unite those, especially North America, part of Central America, going all the way down to Panama, which would include the canal, Is he regurgitating globalist ideas to make this North American block, economic and geographic block, or is this something different that he wants to bring about for security, national security, economic prosperity? But your take on it, because it's very similar. Like I'm trying to differentiate the two, and I can't find much of a difference.
Well, I think he is definitely playing chess when everybody else is playing checkers. Because, he's up here saying this and he's having trouble with NATO. Well, Greenland is positioned really well to keep missiles from and Russia out of the North Sea and from attacking. And they've got a lot of exploration going on up under the north of the polar circle at the Arctic Circle. So there's some defensive things that he could do there. Plus, even if he makes them our friend, it can give us a second hedge of protection from what NATO is, because we don't know where they are, and with them all being overrun by Islam, they may not soon be part of us. So, and then of course Panama, he's playing this as, it's they're not treating America correctly. Well, we could fix it and then put a military presence there so that we can have have the protection that we need for international trade. And that would, of course, that both of those would be for protection of the United States and would help us mineral wise. Also, if we helped with Canada, which is our third largest trading partner, and lots of oil and energy to bring things down. So I think I think there's a lot of motives here going on, a lot of moves on the chessboard to maybe even stop the World Economic Forum, because he's not a big fan of those guys.
He's
He
supposed to
even went,
speak. Yeah, he's supposed to speak this week coming up online at the World Economic Forum, which makes it a very interesting thing what he's going to say. He's spoken there before. I think this will be his third time speaking. I think first time online. But the World Economic Forum Summit meeting, it's January 20th through the whole week.
22. Yeah.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting because there's been some tension, but he's also been there.
Yep.
Can't
And he
disagree with
spoke
that.
to him and they didn't like what he said.
Yeah, so I wonder what he's going to say. Is he going to do the Javier Milei, go in there and excoriate them, or is he going to do the, placate them sort of thing? So anyway,
He'll
there's
play
much to consider.
chess, whatever he does.
Yeah, I mean, he is a guy that would likes to do that. So,
He never telegraphs his moves. He's telling, you're trying to figure out what he's doing, with the Gulf of Mexico, and it keeps people off balance, and everybody wants to know what he's thinking and doing. So he's in everybody's head.
yeah, Bush tried to do it. Clinton tried to do it. Obviously, they had different motives. I mean, some of it was economic, some of it was political, some of it was, of course, corrupt. And I just hope that whatever it is, it does the country good and in a good sense, not because just trying to become just not trying to become more powerful, but to deteriorate the evil that is in the world. Jacob, some people have made this into the idea that this could be some prophetic significance to that. Any thoughts on that? Having an economic bloc that big in the West could become some kind of Daniel.
One of the theories
Daniel.
of the 10 toes of Daniel is not that it's a confederation of 10 countries that were in the Roman Empire. That is long gone because there's 25 countries that joined the EU.
That's right.
But 10 global trading blocks. 10 global trading blocks is one of the possible alternatives. And that would indeed extend the prophecy of Daniel into something global. So from that point of view, yes, that is always a possibility. We've stated that in my book on the Antichrist, on Shadows of the Beast. We said that is one of the possibilities. Now, there are other alternative explanations. The Western European Union, that is those countries that are members of the EU but are also members of NATO, the strongest countries within the EU. There are 10 of those approximately. There is an alternative explanation. But 10 global trading blocks, that would be Comic-Con, and ASCOM and things like this, on the Southeast Asian one, the African one. There are those who propose it could correspond to this, and we'll have to wait and see. But it is a plausible proposition.
Yeah, definitely for sure. And we're seeing some of those things coming up. I wanted to ask you about Biden. He's on his way out. He makes a final speech. You talked a little bit about it at the beginning. Jacob, will he go down as the worst president in modern history? I mean, I know that people are going to have various different opinions and ideas. This guy, but in terms of modern history, in terms of what we've seen, boy, I can go down the list, but you can start off one too. Would he go down as one of the worst?
We've had other corrupt presidents, Lyndon Johnson, Richard Nixon. We've had other corrupt presidents. Certainly Barack Obama, I believe, was a corrupt president. But Biden was a corrupt senator. He was a corrupt everything. He's always been a liar. He's always been a hypocrite. He's always been that. And now coming into the presidency as a ranking competent who was at least to some degree senile on top of it, and then compounded by his capacity for lying, there'll be no question he'll be one of the worst presidents in recorded history. Concerning him, you have to understand, we have a problem in this country. In the Trump administration, you've got Vice President Vance, you've got Marco Rubio, you've got Robert Kennedy Jr. These people are all Roman Catholics. They're not evangelicals. Trump is largely surrounded by Roman Catholics and even some Hindus, such as Tulsi Gabbard and
Patel
Ramasworthy and so on. Okay, he's got Hindus and he's got Catholics. There's not a strong evangelical influence among Mr. Trump's staff or followers or his inner circle. Likewise with Mr. Biden. Biden is a Roman Catholic. Pelosi is a Roman Catholic. They tended to have liberal, non-religious, non-secular Jews and also Roman Catholics. Biden gave a medal to the Pope last week, the Medal of Freedom to the Pope. Now, you have to understand in the Catholic mentality, in the Roman Catholic mentality, by giving a medal to a Pope, that is somehow, in his thinking, something that opens the gates of heaven to him. You understand? That is a way of salvation. That is something that's going to assure his eternal position before God within the Roman Catholic mentality, if you understand Roman Catholicism. Pelosi is the same. That is their thinking. And so notice he's gotten religious. He's gotten in with the papacy. He wanted to make his last final trip abroad to Italy, but he couldn't because of the fires and so forth. But he tried to make his last final trip abroad to Italy to pay homage to the Pope and to give the Pope the medal personally. So Biden is looking at his post-presidential future, which obviously entails not being around too long. And he's trying to secure his position in eternity with the Roman Catholic mindset. That's just the way it works.
Yeah, it is far beyond that. And I wanted to ask you this question too, Jacob. Regarding the oligarchs. He made a big deal about the oligarchs, wealthy billionaire oligarchs. We need to warn about the tech industry and warn about the industrial complex, similar to what you're saying about Eisenhower. And he talked about the wealthy billionaires and the oligarchs, which he did one to Soros. He talked about the Pope, but he gave one to another Antichrist, which was Soros. He actually sent his son to get it, so that's a different one. And but he talked about the 28th Amendment as the law of the land. The 28th Amendment is the law of the land. The 28th Amendment hasn't even been ratified yet.
There's no such thing.
Yeah. So is he trying to bamboozle people? Or does he really think that there's a 28th Amendment ratified already?
Again, we're dealing with somebody who has incipient dementia.
Yeah. It was really out there, in terms of that. But what do you think about that? Soros, Clinton. I mean, he was handing out to Satan. I mean, he could have been anybody.
But to have the biggest Republican oligarch, Blomberg, get a, get a Medal of Freedom, and the biggest Democrat oligarch who who funded the campaigns of these pro-crime prosecutors like Gascon and Bragg. That is Soros. Who is he to complain about the dangers of oligarchy when he had just a few days earlier honored two of the most notorious oligarchical corruptocrats again in the country, in the thinking of many people?
Yeah.
The
David,
biggest Democratic Party donors.
David, you think people notice this, or is it just more like over their heads and going, "Oh wow, he's pretty nice to all these people," or do people go, "What the heck is he doing?"
I think most people are not very educated on what is going on within the country. We've got two generations that just don't know how to critically think. And when you see all these man on the street interviews, you see how people can answer questions such as who is the vice president? So to have these other players that Soros is secondary, he's not even in the country, and what he's doing, you have to really be kind of involved in politics to know it. And I think in America, we have a lot more people that are involved in politics and a lot more people around the world, including here in America, are more involved in TikTok.
Yeah, David, you think he will be one of the worst presidents we ever had? I mean, your opinion on it of it?
Yes, he had in the
Not
middle of
just not just
last,
corrupt, not just corrupt. That's one thing, right? But
yeah.
worse in terms of policy, in terms of ideas and expansion or a contraction of the economy. Your thoughts?
Well, I think since he was rewriting history in his farewell speech, such as how good it was, the economy,
He
uh,
didn't mention
he,
COVID at all, right? He didn't
yeah,
mention
no
COVID at all.
COVID, no inflation, didn't manage that he had the worst inflation, stuff like this. But he had one of the lowest ratings. It was like 36 in the middle of the week and 30% approval at the end of the week.
He
So it
went.
only got worse. And even Mr. Nixon, who has been judged historically since his day as the lowest rated president, 41, well,
Yeah, he
he
bypassed
he's winning that badge to be first in something.
it.
So
It was so bad. He
yeah,
had the lowest rating, even when Nixon got in the helicopter. Nixon still had better ratings than Biden.
Yes,
yeah,
Yeah,
so it's a shame because
that's an
look,
achievement.
people with dementia, they tend to rethink things in their own mind and make them better. They make themselves better, and you're seeing this. They have their own dream world that they're in, and they think everything's good. It's like when I talked to the doctor about my mom, he said it's almost going to a childlike state in your mind. Everything is sort of imaginary and stuff like that, and they have a peacefulness in it.
So, David, what
So,
you're saying is most liberals have dementia?
well, I don't know if dementia, but certainly fantasy world for those that don't actually have it physically. But he certainly has dementia.
yeah. As one Jewish commentator said, it is a mental illness.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
It's a
It
mental
is.
illness, no doubt. I wanted to switch gears real quick from one incompetent to another, and just really quick as we want to get to other subjects. But what's going on in LA and the fires? And Jacob, you're right there. Like you're almost at the epicenter of things. Things happen in one location. You just happen to be there. That's just God's hand upon your life. And you and Jay saw them very much close at hand with the fires and the disaster there. And now the latest is it's not just the incompetence of what they did and the DEI and all that stuff. And you did a video already on it, but the reality that it is seen because of all the new confirmations that we've been getting, it was a bureaucratic stand down, a sabotage of the LA firefighting system, meaning that they just shut it down. They had They didn't have the mechanics. They didn't have the trucks ready. Even then, they didn't deploy all of them. And even whistleblowers, the fire, the head of the union is coming and says that all we needed to do was get the heads up. 70-mile-an-hour winds were coming, but nobody got ready. It almost seems as they allowed it to happen. Now you can get into conspiratorial ideas and all that, and I understand if you don't want to get into it, but I can't pass the fact that they just seem to be not just incompetent, but a sabotage. To me, it seemed like sabotage.
What happened to LA with Bass as a mayor is what would have happened to America if Harris had been president. A failed DEI leadership of people appointed on the basis of gender, sexual orientation, and race. Most firefighters are male. The fire chief, deputy fire chief, and assistant chief, all three were lesbians. All three were lesbians. When asked, one of these a large woman who was a lesbian, a black lesbian, said, people want to see someone like them when they're in an emergency. Well, they asked, what if it was my husband was there? Could you carry him out of the fire? And her response was, well, he shouldn't be in the fire. Now, if a white male had said that,
Oh man,
Fired.
He
yeah.
would be fired immediately. Yet because this woman is a black lesbian, it's perfectly acceptable. The media will cover for her.
Yep.
And then they want to know why people are abandoning the media. Well, this is what you're dealing with. The first problem is DEI leadership. Stupid liberals who vote for politicians who are DEI and push that agenda. Their homes get burned down. They've reaped what they sowed. Now, I feel compassion.
Yes, for the innocents.
For the innocent people. For the innocent people, but not for the Hollywood elite.
Yeah.
Also,
yeah, go ahead, Jay.
I just wanted to add a little bit to the context here. You know, what we're seeing with the three fire chiefs, what we're seeing with the failures with the response time of the fire department not being hamstrung, this is a microcosm of what we're doing to them, that the Biden administration did to the military. He stratified it in the same way. DEI hires with diversity and equity given priority over actual competence.
Yep.
And if you think that the fire department's response was bad, imagine a military based
Oh,
upon
goodness. Can you imagine
a
that?
command structure that is worried about, well, what's your sexual preference? That determines if you make it up the ladder to general.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Or
Yeah,
am
great
I
point,
too
Jay.
sensitive to push the button to fire the nuclear missiles?
Yeah, I don't feel good today. I don't feel well.
Yeah.
David, listen, they had 185 trucks,
Yep.
LAFD, 100 of them, according to the chief, this is the chief's own words, were under repair. They weren't
Yeah.
even functional. And when they asked for more backup, they couldn't get any more backups because they weren't ready. And even trucks that were coming in from other states, they had to go through this whole regulation just to get in the state. It is unreal. But your thoughts on the fact that this was a disaster waiting to happen, and you had the worst form of leadership, and they just sat back.
It's either the worst form of leadership or planned destruction,
Yeah.
which, if you look at it from the whistleblower, the labor union guy, he says, look, this was planned. Everybody knew, had been warned, these winds were coming. And in fact, if you remember, Joe Rogan back in July had an interview with a fireman, said that we've been very lucky,
Yep.
but the next one could just burn all the way to the coast. Well,
It
this one
happened
not only burned all the way to the coast, it burned to the beach.
to the beach. Yeah,
Yeah, on
absolutely.
the other side of the highway, Pacific Coast
Yeah,
Highway, it
it
took
went
out
into.
Malibu. And
Yeah.
so for me, when I look at it and everything and see this, that they were all on the same page, and Miss Bass knew the warnings before
That's
she
right.
even took off for Africa
Yeah,
and was
yeah.
over there and planned, said, I'll never go overseas. You know, we got to be here and take care of the city. But when you look at some of the C40 information that comes out of the World Economic Forum, one of them is the use of wildfire. I mean, we're seeing the same scenario we saw in the mountains of North Carolina. Oh, you guys don't have flood insurance? Too bad. Well, we're 3,000 feet up. We're not supposed to be getting flooded. Okay. Or in Hawaii, well, you guys have no insurance. Well, that's because you won't let the investigators in to evaluate my property. And now here, everything's burned, and they're going. And if you look up there, what was the fire up there? It was the one way up north, that little city that just burned to the ground.
Oh, Paradise.
Paradise.
Yeah.
Paradise is a shell of what it
Yeah.
once was. Only a few people have desired to stay there.
Yeah.
But what happens is that people, they're going to understand this is going to take years to get this fixed. He's going to promise them all, but this is going to be trauma to people trying to say, do we rebuild? Do I have insurance? Oh, I don't have insurance. How do I build my house back? Because my house was what I put things into. You know, we lived in Pacifica Palisades for 40 years. Our house is paid off. It's worth $2 million, $3 million. Now it's burned to the ground, and they canceled me 4 weeks ago all my insurance. And
Yep.
so these people, someone will come up, BlackRock, not to drop names, pop in and say, hey, we'll buy your lot for $500,000.
Yeah.
And
And the worst
go.
part, yeah, the worst part now, they're running disinformation and misinformation.
Yeah.
They got a lot to speak on it. So that's what's next. I wanted to switch gears real quick because it is coming back to the Online Safety Act, but this is in England. This is in the UK.
Yeah.
Jacob Prash, the protection that's going on by the Labour Party, and they don't want to do an investigation. They are buying time, it seems like. Starmer's buying time. He's calling for action, says, who needs investigation? Just get action, action, action. But this is a search that they want to do into the grooming scandals that have happened over the past 2 decades. And the prime minister doesn't want to do it. Other MPs want to do it. But obviously, Labor is blocking all of that. This is going to be big. And based on Andrew Bridgen, the MP,
Yes.
it is bigger than we think. It is bigger than we think. And there's a lot of people into the grooming and into the trafficking. He wants to expose all this. But your thoughts, since you haven't been here a couple of weeks, we had Mike McDonough here from the UK, Memorial UK, and he did a great job explaining a lot of the stuff that's going on. But your take on the newer stuff that has happened with the Labour Party and Starmer.
It's not just Starmer. It is also the Muslim mayor of London does not want investigations. Why? We've known of these Rotherham instances, but a lid was kept on it by the mainstream media and by the Labour Party. There are three interests that they're trying to protect. One is their own skins for letting it happen. Corrupt politicians trying to protect themselves from accountability and culpability. Second, they're trying to protect multiculturalism.
That's their guy.
Third, they're trying to protect the political interests of the Labour Party, preserving the Muslim vote and Muslim members of parliament. British people who are standing up to what they see now as an Islamic invasion and crimes against British children by Islamic invaders, many people are saying that, are being called racist, extremists, Islamophobes. You're supposed to ignore what happened in the name of being politically correct. Enough people are getting fed up in Britain. And Starmer is having to cope with this. At the same time, he's having to cope with the economic disasters his policies have brought on the government and on the country.
Yeah, it is a disaster nonetheless. It is complete disaster. I mean, I like for people to listen to Andrew Bridgen's interview. People can do it on podcasts on GB News. He lays it down and he says, Jacob, this is the saddest part. It says MPs knew about this.
Yes.
The participants in it. Council members knew about this. The participants in it. The participants with the Muslim
Yes.
community, with the mosque, with the
Yes.
imam. This seems to be a mushroom of
Yes.
of evil that has come upon. And then, according to the report, they targeted Anglo-Saxon girls.
Yeah.
Anglo-Saxon
Yeah.
girls. It was a deliberate attack on Anglo-Saxon girls
Yes.
by far. So I guess if you talk about it, Starmer says he's going to come after you because the Online Safety Act says you can't talk about children, you can't talk about sexualizing children and things like that, pornography, and it's all on the Online Safety Act, which I guess the MP that's running this, Lola McVoy, wants to get more teeth on it and get people even outside the UK to come
Yes.
after them. So I don't think this is going to be an easy thing to bring up and expose, Jacob, because obviously I want justice to be served. Obviously, the Telfer report and all those things laid it out pretty well, what they've done. And I hope to do an investigation. But Jacob, are you hopeful this thing is going to be open and laid out for people to see and people pay the consequences for their corruption and evil?
That remains to be seen. I think there will be a price to be paid. My question is, will justice really be served? Will there be criminal prosecutions of these politicians? Not just an electoral accountability.
Yeah.
Additionally, you cannot trust the media. You cannot trust academic institutions. You
No.
cannot trust the police, obviously. You cannot trust any of these things. It's going to be something that is going to have to come from the grassroots.
Yeah. Jacob, real quick, the what's
Oh, by the way, and you
yeah.
cannot trust the Church of England.
Oh, yeah. I was going to say the religious institutions are
It
just
has
as
no moral voice in the country.
yeah.
And the Evangelical Alliance is almost as big of a joke.
With all this, Jacob, and we know what evil men are going to do, but what is God doing and what is God showing the UK through this? He's exposing things. He's obviously people are reaping what they've sown, and it's so unbelievably rough in that, economically, morally, religiously, spiritually. But what is God showing them? And there's hope for repentance within the nation.
In desperation, there's a hope for repentance. Like in the Blitz in the Second World War, there was something of a national turning to God that not likely would have happened otherwise. C.S. Lewis wrote about this in the background to the Screw Tape Letters, which took place against the Blitz in the war.
Amen.
Okay, there is that. However, Britain has gone into such godlessness.
Mm.
The Church of England is morally and spiritually dead. It's not salt and light. It's basically a joke that nobody pays attention to or respects, and nobody should pay any attention to it or respect it. The Evangelical Alliance is not much better. The Catholic Church has been a pedophile protecting institution in Britain for just as long. We have no Christian church in any biblical sense capable of being salt and light. There are individual believers, individual congregations, home groups, but Britain is post-Judeo-Christian neo-pagan. So there's no moral compass for the society going to come from any kind of religious value. Islam has higher mosque attendance than the Church of England has church attendance, and it's basically Muslims who have been perpetrating these crimes, and then that's the religious compass that's grown in the country. It's hopeless. It is absolutely hopeless. It is divine judgment. What we can hope, what we can hope for, however, is what you see in books like Lamentations. All right, you've rejected God, you've rejected his statutes. Now you're going to reap what you sow as a society. The political reaction to the left, to the Labor Party, is inevitable. It is not, however, only because of these sex gangs, which has been known. It's been known but suppressed. It is because of the mismanagement of the economy and the incompetence of Reeves and Starmer. So the Labor Party is under extreme judgment. What we might be able to hope for, somewhat, is if the Reform Party and the Conservative Party will stop fighting with each other and form a coalition and consensus based on a response to the perceived Islamic invasion of Britain. to the multiculturalism, particularly, and the pandering to radical Islam that has been expressed in anti-Semitism, that is expressed every Sunday in Speaker's Corner in Hyde Park in London. And the police corruption, the politically pressured police corruption and pandering to it. There can be a political reaction. But unless there is a spiritual awakening, I don't see it happening. There is no solid Christian leadership in Great Britain. Very little, very little, very little among evangelicals, and none elsewhere. The best thing the Church of England can do for Christianity in England is drop dead.
Yeah, and there's nothing to, there's no
spiritually dead, it's morally dead. It may as well institutionally drop dead.
Yeah, and that's what, and that's what you're saying. David, listen, we'll go to you real quick. Your thoughts in a very similar way. California, the UK, they both have these disinformation, misinformation laws that they want to bring. You can't criticize any other leadership. Obviously, sex scandals, complete grooming scandals, trafficking scandals, DEI scandals. But is there any hope for repentance that you see in the horizon? From the people, obviously not the government. Sorry, the people.
The people. Well, I think we are seeing a divide. Something to divide. We do see that Elon Musk and some of the Trump camp have allowed our First Amendment rights, and they're standing up for it. But not the rest of the world. The rest of the world wants to shut down all social media, not really shut it down because it helps with the bread and circus thing, that you can keep them entertained on a TikTok so that they don't know what's going on. But you have some Christians that are true but I don't see, as I was saying last week, I don't see much evangelism. I don't see much people handing out tracts. And, and we're at a time where we've got to be, if this is a respite given to the Lord, we better make the best of it but we don't see the church going out and evangelizing. There are pockets. I'm not saying that there's not pockets somewhere or some good churches here and there. But true Christians are a very, very small minority. But for his people, we are seeing the divide. We are saying we better be ready. We need to be looking at our own lives, to be looking inward and seeing if we're honoring the Lord with our mouth and with our works and bringing honor to Him. And are we getting evangelism out? Are we warning the people of what's coming? And so while I don't see a lot of it, I do know there's good people out there that God has His 7,000, as it were, but I know it's more than 7,000. But but people that can see knows that this time is different. They're seeing that we're starting to understand the book of Daniel. They're starting to listen. And to all of our supporters and everything, we're very, very thankful for our view, and we're trying to get you guys ready for what's coming. And I would just encourage everybody, keep reading your Bible every day. Keep asking what you can do. What can I do? Think about your unsaved loved ones. Night is coming.
No man can work. Absolutely.
Right.
Great point. And please pray for some of the
Yes.
projects that the Lord has put on us to do, a task to do, and that one of them being the film. Why is this time different? We believe this time is different, and Jacob's going to be, eloquently pointing it out and leading people through a very thought-provoking movie in terms of what it means to be in these days and preach the gospel, and hopefully it goes and to the whole world for people to see it. And we're going to need believers that are watching, not only Faithful Believers Moriel, but other ministries that can help with the movie being watched by other people, because we believe it's important
And we had so much trouble from the world to get this started. I mean, okay, we had COVID, we had the wars, we had these things, but he goes out to California, checks into a hotel, and it was like that Bugs Bunny cartoon where the guy's trying to get to sleep, like that. And so he wasn't getting any sleep. He was having troubles out there, and so the
Power
world press
outages,
and
sickness, power
sickness,
outages, sickness, traffic jams like you would not believe
you
because
know,
the traffic light system is down. Yeah, it's been.
everything is against us right now in this movie. And if you're a Christian, ask the question: do you think that this is the devil's hand in this, trying to prevent Jacob and everything? So please pray for Jacob, man. Pray for his health. He's got an incredible schedule. He's got to do this, get this film going. He's got his other book, all this stuff to get everybody ready. And so he's got to go to back to Poland. He's got to go to Israel. All these things are consuming his time and it. I'm telling you personally, as his friend, please pray for him and his health because I know it's a struggle.
Yeah.
And
Amen.
if you
Thank you
didn't
guys.
like that, Jacob, well, you can tell me.
I'm
So
But
not
tell
I,
them
gonna
later.
lie, it's not
Tell them
easy.
later. Yeah. Now I want to switch gears real quick as we're running out of time. We want to get to the part about Israel, but
yeah,
there are some instability among the nations. I want to
yeah,
go through them real quick and ask you guys to pick one and then talk about it if you want to. The Romanian elections that were overturned by NATO. Right, you have Kellen Georgescu who won seemingly won completely outright the election, and NATO came in and said, "Well, people were watching RT, Russian television, and so this was Russian interference." They overturned him, given to another person right now, a NATO puppet that's running Romania right now, and people are protesting because it's like you took away our rights. We voted, and it took away our rights. So now there's a constitutional annulment of the election. So a coup. That's what he says is a coup that's trying to come against him by NATO, by the EU. And of course, it's tied into the war because he was not a warmonger. He didn't want the war. He wanted to make peace. He wanted to be friendly to the West, to the East. They also got the president of South Korea being arrested, and for the first time over corruption, over the martial law thing. So you got North Korean troops kind of moving in and making sure that, hey, it's not going to be destabilized. And then you have Azerbaijan with Armenia and the whole area with Iran, funded by Turkey, supported by these Islamic governments to maybe chokehold Iran. But Armenia and Azerbaijan is going through a big possible situation there that can start off any time. And you have Putin meeting with Trump prior to his inauguration to try to get a peace deal because it says it's too important to wait until the inauguration, as you see Russia signing an agreement with Iran for 20 years. So, Jacob, we'll start with you. Romania, South Korea, Azerbaijan, or a peace treaty with Russia and the U.S., despite the Islamic cooperation with Iran?
Well, let's begin with Korea and just get that out of the way quickly. It's an internal dispute, but we can be sure that Kim Jong-un is watching it very carefully from the north. Kim Jong-un is beginning to have his own problems in his relations with China and with Russia. The North Korean mercenaries have taken high casualty rates, have not fought very well, not performed very well. He is a paper tiger, except in his own mind and in the mind of his own people. His economy is a joke. It relies upon China and to a degree upon Russia. He's no match for the South. So he's looking for any kind of vulnerabilities he can get in the South. The South has had its own history of corruption going back to the Park government. Um, and it's had also a lot of corruption among the Christian churches with
yep.
Mm.
Young Yichao and his
Young
sons.
Yichao. Yep.
Um, you know, and there have been problems with some of the corporations and how it affects international industries that are Korean based. Don't forget, after the United States and Taiwan, the the chip industry is then South Korean. You're
Yep.
talking about the USA and Taiwan, Silicon Valley and Taiwan and South Korea. Countries like Oahu being one and Hyundai. These are international companies that are affected by the internal politics of South Korea. So watch this space. Now, concerning what's happening in Romania, it is a different kind of situation. You know, if you look, and I've been to Romania a few times, my wife was born in Romania, actually. But if you look at Bucharest, and if you look at Constanza, and you look at Timișoara, and you look at Transylvania and East Carpathia, a lot of people don't speak Russian.
No.
Certainly not a lot. The area of what had been Romania, where there was a lot of Russian speakers, was Moldova. But
Moldova, yeah.
that is basically independent anyway. Now,
Right.
there's Russian speakers around Iași in eastern Romania. But this idea of because people can watch Russian TV, that's greatly overstated. Most of them don't. You've got RT in English, you've got RT in maybe some other languages, you've got it in Russian, but I don't think it's nearly as big a factor as it's being made out to be.
I don't met many Romanians that like Russia. I haven't met many.
Yeah, this is NATO interference in the internal affairs of Romania. We're now, though, beginning to see what Trump's strategy may look like in dealing with the conflict with Ukraine. By pushing energy production in the United States, domestic energy independence that was destroyed by Biden, by reasserting American energy independence, oil and natural gas production, this is going to further not only cripple the Russian economy, but cripple Russia's capacity to reinvigorate its economy once the war is over. Putin knows that. Everyone knows that. This is a bargaining chip that Mr. Trump can use. What Mr. Trump is saying is we can use economic power to force you to negotiate along certain terms. He's trying to use economic muscle, in which energy independence for the United States will be a factor that Putin will not be able to ignore. He will not be able to ignore. To expand the war further, that is not the goal of Donald Trump. And without the American leadership, any aggressive policies towards Putin strategically are not likely to go anywhere fast. So the militarization of Romania as a base to attack Russia, if that is happening at all, it is only posturing. It is only posturing in the negotiation. Donald Trump is going to use economic means to pressure.
Yeah, there's quite a bit of that.
To pressure Putin and to twist his arm. That's what he's more likely to do.
Yeah, wide range of sanctions, by the way. That's the strategy. Wide range of
Correct.
sanctions. And no wonder Putin wants to meet really quick, because that would mean the party's over in terms of energy production, things like that. David Lister, real quick, pick one of those. Whether it's the Russia, U.S. Maybe agreement coming up with Trump, whether it's Azerbaijan, South Korea, or what they're doing in Romania with NATO and the EU.
Well, he handled Korea and Romania. So I guess what were the other two again now?
The Azerbaijan, Armenia,
Azerbaijan.
and then Trump and Russia meeting together, Putin meeting together, and of course this is in the light of him signing a 20-year agreement, economically, politically, and resource material with Iran.
Iran. Well, yeah. The thing with Iran is politically, the mullahs and everything seem to be in trouble, and they've lost their agents and everything, so they're looking for other ways to keep the world going. Their oil supplies China's biggest weakness, while it's got plenty of different minerals and everything and gold, it doesn't have oil. So if we can cut off Iran's and sanction them again, that should hurt them, and maybe we could see a summer of revolution there, which that would hurt Azerbaijan and the Armenian question.
Yeah, for sure. And of course, Iran is in trouble economically. And obviously, there's a lot of believers. The gospel keeps growing in Iran, which is now a problem within even their own government is acknowledging that there is a problem with a lot of Christians. A lot of Muslims were becoming Christians. So pray for that. I want to get to this is the final one. It is Israel and what's going on there. I'm going to go to you first, Jacob, first. The security cabinet approved it. Right. This is the Israeli security cabinet approved a ceasefire deal and the return of the hostages is going to go to the full security cabinet, which that's right now. And they're going to work through the Sabbath because religious leaders, Orthodox religious leaders said it is a matter of life and death. We need to work through it. So it's not going to break the Sabbath. And so their biggest thing is that they have to approve it. Then they have to wait 24 hours until Palestinian terrorists are released from Israeli prisons. They have to release these prisoners. And then the people have to, they can file a complaint, they can file an appeal. They have to wait 24 hours. Then they could be released. But then it's changed for 33 hostages. This is the deal that they signed amidst Trump. And by the way, because of Rubio's very, very fond of Israel and very friendly to Israel, I think they believe there's some good things coming for Israel coming down the line. So they signed this deal in Qatar between Hamas and Israel. The exchange is 33 hostages, which we don't even know if they're alive, if some of them are dead or not, they passed away. But your thoughts, Jacob, this is between a rock and a hard place. It's some in the security cabinet don't want to do it, like Gavir doesn't want to do it. Others will go along with it because they need to get the people back. But your thoughts, I don't think it's an easy choice. But nonetheless, I think the hostages need to come back 468 days since October 7th. Your thoughts?
Okay, let's just pick up where you left off. Remember, Israel is desperate to maintain the good relationship it has, which includes intelligence cooperation with Azerbaijan, despite Azerbaijan being Muslim. It helps outflank Iran. It's one Islamic country Israel can rely on. It can no longer rely on Turkey. Turkey, on the other hand, will always be inimical to Armenia, and the Armenians will always hate the Turks due to history and the Holocaust. Yep. So we have to begin there. Now, looking at what's happening in these negotiations, you've got three factors coming into play. The first factor is Biden is trying to salvage a legacy. He's trying to get some kind of a victory, some kind of a something to show for all of his failures in his foreign policies and in handling and mishandling the Middle East. He's never had a foreign policy success. He's only had failures from Afghanistan onward. He's trying to get something. That is the first source, and he's trying to claim credit for what's happening.
Is somebody going to tell him, like, look, you had nothing to do with this. You had 468 days, but you didn't do it.
He's too stupid, and the people who watch CNN and MSNBC are too stupid to know he's stupid. You know, this is what you're dealing with. That's the first factor. But the Biden administration is looking for some kind of a way to save its reputation of catastrophic and repeated failure, particularly in foreign policy and in foreign as well as economic policy, but particularly in the Middle East. Let's continue looking at the next factor, the internal pressures upon Mr. Netanyahu. Although he is supported as a hardliner and tough against Hamas, what has been put on the back burner in Israel is that October 7th happened under his watch. It took place on his watch. That leaves him vulnerable among the Israeli right, even within the Likud. It leaves him politically vulnerable. He is under tremendous pressure domestically to get the Israeli hostages back, even though what's looking like you have to give back thousands of radical Muslims to get back the corpses of a few dozen Jews. We don't even know how many of the Israeli hostages are still alive. They want to trade corpses for radicals and even terrorists. That's what they want to do. However, if it was your son, your daughter, your husband, your whatever, you would do anything. It's an understandable humanitarian dilemma he's facing and that Israel's facing. So he is under that pressure if he can get anybody back. And the Israelis, unlike Hamas, the Israelis value the lives of their people and of their children. Hamas don't care about the lives of their children. They'll use them as human shields for propaganda purposes. Hamas does not care one bit, but Israel does. That is the second factor. The domestic pressures from the population generally, the families of the abductees, and also from the right wing with his right wing partners within his own government. That is the second factor. The third factor, which may or may not be the case, it's being alleged that there's pressure from the incoming Trump administration for him to go for the deal. This has not yet been proven. Of course, it has not happened on Mr. Trump's watch. Mr. Trump has an easy way out, but Mr. Trump did have one negotiator on the Biden team, who's an effective negotiator. It is not likely that Hamas would have made the deal if they were not under the threat of Donald Trump saying that there's going to be hell to pay if the hostages are not released.
Yeah.
So those are the three factors that have come into play. All three of them have to be taken into account. If there is a fourth factor, it is now the vulnerability of Iran. Where are they going to go? What are they going to do next?
Who they play with next?
They've still got some control over the Houthis. But in Lebanon, you now have a Christian president of Lebanon who does not like Hezbollah, who does not like Iran, and who did not like the Assad regime that's now gone in Syria. So there is a loss of power in Iran by the Iranians. There is a vulnerability from Azerbaijan by the Iranians. There's a loss of power in eastern Syria by the Iranians. There's a loss of power largely in Gaza by the Iranians. The only thing they still have is a foothold in Yemen with the Houthis. So that is another factor.
Yeah, David, I want to go to you real quick because there's a second phase to this deal, which is going to release more prisoners from Israeli jails, more terrorists. And there's a second phase of 65 more hostages. By the way, some of them are Americans, if the Americans are still alive, but it's crazy to think 468 days since Biden could have done something, never did anything about it. Now he's thinking he did it, which is a joke. But anyway, the 65 more for more terrorists, which is a very difficult decision to make. Then you have the coalition that seems to be breaking up, at least with Vingavir, that wants to get out of the coalition because of this. Because the other side of the coin is this: yes, Jacob's right. If that was our children, if that was my son, that was my daughter, whatever it takes. But here's what Vingavir said, which not a lot, but there's a faction of Jews that believe this: if you release them, you just kind of create the problem again. It's just going to happen again. And whether they trust the administration coming in, I don't know. But the reality is they played this game before. Abbas is being put into the role of the Gaza sort of keeper again. So, David, what are your thoughts on all this?
Well, if it was my choice, I would tell the IDF, go hunting. And I'd wish them good hunting. Let these guys go and let them walk across the Philadelphia thing and then go hunt them down. But that's me. But because they're right, these guys will go back to digging tunnels, go back to arming themselves, go back because they're consumed with the killing of Jews. Even long time ago, 25 years ago, they were given the option of having 98% of what they wanted concerning their state, and they walked away from the table, and they're just consumed with death. And so these are the Hamas is the Egyptian Brotherhood, which has been the most radical group of all of them. And I look for their end, but this could cause a little instability within Israel, and the breakup of the part of Netanyahu's coalition. But it is interesting that these guys, look, they're going to go back and do what they always do, and they have a valid point, and they got rid of most of them, but like you say, you've got compassion on one side, and on the other side, these guys are going to go back and try to kill more Jews. So it's a catch-22.
Very difficult choice. Very difficult
Very
choice.
difficult. Catch-22.
Is this?
Go ahead.
you're finding first of all, the Biden administration and the United Nothing forced Israel to allow humanitarian aid into Gaza. That aid was given to the government of Gaza, which is Hamas. It was not given directly to the people. In fact, some of the aid was sequestered by Hamas and even sold to people or used for Hamas's terrorist purposes. Not all the aid went to the people to whom it was designated. No aid should have been allowed into Gaza until the hostages were released. A hard line should have been taken, but of course, the Biden administration, controlled by Obama, handed to Islamic terror as always.
Yes.
David mentions the Muslim Brotherhood. The Muslim Brotherhood has an American front called the Council of American Islamic Relations.
Yeah.
Three times its leadership was associated with the Muslim Brotherhood, and they've had a friend and a spokesman in the United States who went against General Morsi's control of Egypt in favor of giving it to the Muslim Brotherhood. That spokesman and defender and friend of the Muslim Brotherhood, whose military wing is Hamas, is Barack Obama. This is the level of corruption and betrayal we're talking about. Now, what is happening right now? Post Hamas Gaza, they want to give it back to Fatah, the Palestinian Authority that controls the West Bank. Abbas, understand something. Abbas, the Palestinian Authority, is not a legitimate government. They have had an election in 19 years. They have not allowed free elections in 19 years because they know the same as Hamas took control of Gaza from Fatah, they would take the West Bank from Fatah. If the Israelis were not present as a military presence in the West Bank, there would be a civil war in the West Bank between Hamas and Fatah. Israel is protecting the Palestinian Authority by its presence. They don't want to tell you that, but that's what will happen. It is not a legitimate government. So you're taking an illegitimate government of Fatah and giving them control of Hamas, something that they lost to Hamas because Arafat's people pilfered and embezzled the international aid that was given when the Israelis withdrew in 2005. Just bring in more, get rid of one team of pro-terrorist promulgators of corruption and bring in another. That's all they're going to do is replace one terrorist presence with another, unless the Trump administration and the Israeli right prevent it. But that's what the UN will try to do.
Yeah, this is what the trouble is with making this deal with Qatar. We talked about Qatar a couple of weeks ago, where they're the biggest funders of terrorism, just like Saudi Arabia. In fact, maybe even more to a certain degree. They're very, let's just say Al Jazeera covers a lot for them. And so they were part of this deal. They were part of putting Abbas back in the Palestinian Authority in Gaza. They seem that it doesn't make any sense to trust any of these guys, but at the same time, just like the scripture talks about, Israel's among the nations. And if they go to Egypt or if they go to other nations to make a deal, it's always woe to them that go down to Egypt. And I just pray that they don't go down this road. But at the same time, we're still dealing with unbelieving Israel and praying for the Jewish people to get saved. But it is coming to a very different, Jacob, to quote your movie, or the movie that you're putting together, is this time is different. It is very different. It is very different than what Israel's facing, and the threats are different, and the world has changed rather rapidly. And we're coming to the close of the age with the Temple Institute being a formidable influence now within society, and people are changing their mind in terms of being religious. So, did you watch that 60 Minutes about the Gaza policy?
I absolutely did. And it was absolutely disgusting and shocking. CBS News, I pray to God it implodes. I have never seen such a lack of journalistic integrity in my life, I don't think, by a mainstream news organization. Never. It ignored the fact that Iran is trying to make a power play inside Egypt as a post-Gaza alternative. It ignores that when Israel was attacking Gaza, it happened when Gaza was still shooting rockets at Israel's civilian population. Following the October 7th attacks, it unleashed barrages and barrages and barrages of weeks and weeks and weeks and into months of rocket attacks on Israel. The Israelis were firing back in self-defense while Hamas was using its own civilians as human shields. No mention of this. It was only these left-wing State Department bureaucrats saying how bad it was for the United States to support Israel in doing this to the Palestinian people, ignoring the fact that while it was going on, Hamas was shooting rockets every day at Israel and Israeli population centers. It just ignored that. It ignored the fact that Hamas was using its own civilians as human shields. It just ignored it. It put the entire blame on Israel for fighting back and defending itself. What they said was stupid. One very stupid, stupid woman. Either that or she is just an evil, fork-tongued propagandist and apologist for Islamic terror. That's the only other possibility. I think I'm giving her the benefit of the doubt and writing her off as being that stupid. That by responding the way it did, Israel hurt itself. What do you do when people are shooting at you? Another gentleman, for want of a better term, there was nothing gentle about his lying mouth, was Israel had the world's sympathies on October 7th. And instead of calling for a Palestinian state and using it as a diplomatic opportunity, they fought back. How do you call for a two-state solution, as he said, with people who reject it? Hamas rejects it. They say, from the river to the sea, we do not want any Israel. We reject the two-state solution. Yet this, he's either a liar or an imbecile or both. He's either a liar, an imbecile, or both, saying that Israel should have capitalized on October 7th to call for a two-state solution by people who reject the two-state solution and want to shoot rockets at you. I'm glad these people are gone from the State Department. I only wish they were gone from the face of the earth.
And of course, the Jews face threats, obviously, among the nations, within the nation. One interesting thing is we've seen this past year, and early on already this year, hasn't really stopped, is the anti-Semitism, Jacob, in the West. But I'm going to go to Davey real quick because I just wanted to talk just very briefly of the anti-Semitism that it goes largely underreported in most of the world, but especially in Australia. We don't hear a lot of it, but it is happening. We've reported it here. We talked about it here. Davey, the anti-Semitism in Australia, very personal. These people have contacted not only friends of friends, but people that know Moriel are concerned because of the uptick since October 23rd, October 7th, 2023, of anti-Semitism, especially within Australia. So can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Yep, no worries. Look, I'll certainly do my best. I guess in the last week or so, it's become a little bit more personal and become a little bit more real to me too. But since October 7th, look, anti-Semitism has gone through the roof here. At the moment, the latest figure was there's a 700% increase in reported anti-Semitic attacks. Now, that's just reported, and it's far worse than actually that when you realize exactly what's going on. But it really is kind of no wonder we have a terribly, terribly weak leadership at the moment. We've got Anthony Albanese is pro-Palestinian. We've got Penny Wong, who is pro-Palestinian. She actually did make the statement the other day that anti-Semitism has no place in Australia, to which I responded, so when are you going to leave? We really need to get rid of our leaders at the moment. They need to be held to account. I can't see that happening. So look, I've been getting comfort from Psalm 73. We know their day is going to come. Judgment Day is going to come at the moment, but it is not safe here for, if you're Jewish, it's not safe for you to be here in this country anymore. If you're a true born again believing Christian, you're not welcome here in this country anymore. And that's becoming more and more clear to me too, that we're not welcome here. This is not our country anymore. It's been kind of heartbreaking to sort of see, but the media has always been biased. ABC here has always been biased. Our local 60 Minutes that they do here has always been pro-Palestinian, anti-Israel. So the population has been primed with this. They've been brainwashed over a period of time. Australia has always been bad when it comes to mob rule. It's kind of like the media's always never had, we've never had alternate media here. I always think back to what they did to Lindy Chamberlain, how they crucified her. They destroyed her life, basically. She was, it was trial by media. She was found guilty before she even went to trial. Years later, she was acquitted and all the rest of it, but the damage was already done. It destroyed her husband. The media was never held to account, and the media is far worse now, especially since we've got our East Safety Officer and all the rest of it reporting what can be reported and what can't be reported. But this week, look, we actually had one of our viewers mention the ordeal that him and his family went through. They're believers in Yeshua, Messianic believers, but they suffered at the hands of those who are supposed to protect us. We've watched as people have shouted death to the Jews and all the rest of it from the Sydney Opera House, and they'll arrest the one person there peacefully protesting with an Israeli flag. We know our justice system, our police force here is not about justice. The police are busy wanting a 24% wage increase here. We haven't forgotten what you did to us during the lockdowns during COVID, how you would beat up old women, grannies, in the park, or harass and pepper spray, 12-year old girls in supermarkets. We haven't forgot the brutality that you've done to us. And now the two-tiered justice system that you're displaying here, your anti-Semitism, the police here have been infected with DEI policies. It's nearly all run by lesbians at the moment. It's always the butch woman in positions of power, infiltrated by pro-Palestinian sort of stances. So my heart really goes out to the family who watches us, who contacted us last week. What you went through shouldn't happen to any Australian. The fact that police can now just break into your home, they don't need a warrant for whatsoever, hold guns to point guns at children. Children don't need to have guns pointed at them by the police. Look, what's happened is absolutely disgusting. It's had me livid. My prayers and my thoughts go out to you if you're watching. I know you're seriously thinking about making Aliyah, and look, I actually can't blame you, and I don't actually blame anyone who's Jewish now. It's not even becoming safe to be Christian here anymore. But
Yeah,
this all lays at the media, our weak politicians, Penny Wong, Anthony Albanese. Look, this is all your fault. Companies like Australia Post too. As soon as October 7th happened, because we had weak leaders like Anthony Albanese, um, they bowed. They bowed to one of the first things they did. They stopped mail deliveries to Israel. They did this right on Hanukkah. When when it got reported, when it all got exposed, they came up with some really lame policies why they were doing it, but they reversed their policy once outside pressure was put on them. Australia Post is not to be trusted. Neither are many of the companies. They're in bed with the Palestinians. one thing with Australia Post at the moment too, they're doing replacement theology. They've got a refugee employment engagement action plan, which is basically they're going to be replacing all the workers that they've recently put off in the last 12 months or so with people who have come into this country who've had their visas approved in less than 24 hours. These immigrants that have come in, which have also helped fuel the anti-Semitism. One reason we've had such a rise of anti-Semitism is because of all the immigrants coming in who are not being properly screened. They're coming in with an agenda. They're Islamifying this country even more. They're causing havoc wherever they go, and now they're going to be taking over institutions like Australia Post and unfortunately the police. One thing I noticed, two figures hit me this week: 700% rise in anti-Semitism here. Now this is just the Victorian police force alone. There have been in the last 5 years uh, close enough to 700 Victorian police members investigated for sex crimes. There's a correlation here. Look what this is what your DEI policies do. The police are not going to protect you. You cannot rely on the police. You cannot rely on the government. They need to be held to account for their crimes. All we can do, the only one we can rely on is the Lord. We need to pray. We also need to be there for one another. It's kind of like I'm thinking, I wish I had the money, the funds, and that kind of thing. I think we're getting to the point where we're going to need safe houses for those fleeing persecution in this country, where we can shield and hide them. It's getting that bad here. We had the most horrific attacks this week in Sydney, in Dover Heights, cars being firebombed, houses being targeted because prominent Jewish people live there. The graffiti, I cannot repeat what they wrote, what they did. It's not going to be long until somebody is killed. And in fact, I'm actually almost convinced that we actually have one death as a result of this. It can't be proven. And I've only got inside information. I can't say too much about it, but a woman did die in a house fire this year. Her house was targeted incorrectly. She wasn't the victim. I'm going to be careful what I say here. But look, it's getting that bad here. So we need to stay close to the Lord. We really need to be there for one another. And it's not just here. It's happening. We've seen it in Britain. Gosh, it's getting way bad there too. But this country is not the country we grew up anymore.
Yeah, things are definitely, just like England, they got censorship laws, Davey, and you almost can't find any information on it. And if you do speak about it in Australia, they'll censor you. You got radical. Actually, it's an American woman that had some of that. What was her name again? I always forget
Oh,
her name.
Julie Inman Grant. Yes,
Julia
yeah.
McGrath. Yeah, she's an American who doesn't like the First Amendment, and she won't give anybody the First Amendment, even as an American, even though she knows it's true. But she's in charge of that. So censorship, anti-Semitism, obviously corrupt government, and going after believers, obviously Jewish believers. So you see more of that happening, Davey. I don't want to paint a grim picture, but
Oh,
more Jews
yeah,
committing to Aliyah.
yeah. Look, I can't say I blame him. I really don't want to see him go because it's kind of like, look, I do have Jewish friends here too. Um, and look, the Jewish people have always contributed well to our society. We've been a better society for them. Melbourne's not what Melbourne used to be anymore. Melbourne, unfortunately, is like another world nowadays. It is very, very heartbreaking to see your country being destroyed before your own eyes, especially when it's being done,
By design.
by design.
Yeah, by allowing
Um,
this. Yeah.
but I really do think Aliyah is going to happen more and more from here.
Yes.
People are going to have to do it.
You've seen it in Europe, you've seen it in UK, you've seen it now in Australia, New Zealand. It hasn't happened too much in America, but that's waiting to happen. A lot of Jews
Yeah.
don't want to leave, but if it's obviously scriptures called that God calls them back to the land, and they're gonna be regathered. Isaiah
Yeah.
11, regathered a second time. So
Oh, also,
Yep.
Don't trust Zuckerberg or any of them. I know Zuckerberg came out this week and he admitted to they were censoring people and all the rest of it. We're going to be a free platform and all the rest of it. Yeah, that only applies to the US, believe it or not. That does not apply to Australia because of Julie Inman Grant. Australians
Oh,
we're still going to be censored on Facebook, so you don't believe that, and I believe the same is true because of Starmer's policies in the UK. So that big thing he did, we're going to be a free platform. We're for free speech. We're going to be a free platform. Doesn't apply to the UK. Doesn't apply to Australia, unfortunately.
yeah. And the trouble is too, Davey, being there, Jacob having gone there, it's the trouble with the spiritual condition, right? The church believers there, very few, in terms
Oh,
of
the church is dead. Not, and
yeah.
probably, I think this is a conservative figure that 90% of the church here would be replacement theology. I've had a lot of people contact me about, oh, what do you know about this guy? What do you know about that guy? I know Mark Hemans was one of them. I looked at him. Okay, first thing I noticed, he calls himself an apostle. Look, the stuff that we've got here in the churches is just kind of like it's a sewer. It's a sewer. Well, look, we would be better off without the church in this country. I'm sad to say.
Yeah, same with
Well,
England.
it's not the true church. We're
Yeah.
very few of us, I think.
Yeah. You just need more true believers that preach the gospel. And I appreciate not only the believers there, the people that we met, the fellowships that we have, with the people there, and pray that it grows, and pray that there is more salt and light, and even Moriel's influence, our influence there, that can help. It's a little that can help, but God has 7,000, as David had talked about earlier, that won't bow the knee. So we got to just keep praying for the remnant in Australia and New Zealand as well, because that's another trouble there that New Zealand's going through just as well. So let's go to backstage, and we got some questions, and Jacob's got some answers. So we appreciate you guys being here with us. And we gotta finish real quick and get to the question. So God bless you guys. We'll see you on backstage. We won't be on YouTube and we won't be on Facebook. We'll be on all the other ones. So if you're on Rumble, send the questions in through Rumble. If you're on X, that's good. I think without commercials. And I know Jace talks about people watch videos without commercials, go on X and do it, but it's ever growing in that area. So God bless you guys. We'll see you on backstage.